I think we're ready to go here. I want to talk about the silicone more because it's such a fiasco. The silicone I used didn't set, so I've had to pin it with some nails. You might notice I've added some more nails if you saw the video before because it just wasn't holding. So I've added some of those 4-inch long common nails, and that's surely going to hold it in place. Surely. And I've marked where they are. Surely I'm going to remember to remove them all. Again, the mix 2 parts sand to 1 part cement, 10% PVA polyvinyl acetate additive to the water. Mixed it all together to, a workable consistency, something that's kind of, soft and liquidy, but still firm enough that I can climb a vertical surface with it. Let's go ahead and get started. I like to add the weld bond or the PVA into the water, but in this case I didn't know how much water I was going to need, so I didn't know what 10% of that was going to be. I used 2.5 liters in each. So now I have some kind of idea how much I'm going to use here, and it's still liquidy enough. I'm not going to have any trouble mixing it in thoroughly. I guess you want to see it, huh? All right. I think it turned out pretty good. So right away, because I'm using 2 mixes here, because I think that I probably have enough to do what I want to do here. One of them is always going to be just a little bit different than the other. And so one of them, the wetter mix, which I would describe, I'm just going to cool that back there, put some plastic on it and let it chill out while I work with getting the base started here. The first part goes quickly because I use a lot on the base because I want it to be nice and heavy and solid so it doesn't tip over. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, let's get started here. Margin trowel, we're going to use that a lot. Point trowel, you're going to use that a lot. That's kind of like your main implements here. The only other thing that I have here, a sea sponge. That's great for texturing, and it helps you to do kind of like random patterns, and definitely very, very helpful. I have one step further. I make texture skins of real stone, so it makes it easy to give it a real stone texture. I'll be introducing this a little bit later on, presuming that this all goes well. I haven't done it for a couple of years, so I'm sure I'm not going to be doing my best work here. But I'm having fun. I hope you are too. That's the whole point of this. So this nice new one, I mean, it's all shiny and stuff, but I don't know. Kind of like this one. I think we'll go with the new one. I think a million miles of service or a million pounds of concrete, like that seems like enough, right? Surely you get to retire at some point in your life, so you know, hang it up there for now. So this one here, it's a little bit of a funny angle. I've just got a board big enough to sit it on, and it kind of works well because he's tilted towards the camera so you can see what's going on. So we're going to try to work with this. I'm going to need to spin it, and that should show you how versatile this is in terms of manipulate it as you're going, and the concrete's not just falling off. Hopefully it goes well. Let me show you what I'm working with here. So here's our product. This is our sculpting mix with a high concentration of cement. The cement is very dense, and it allows for a very fine detail. You can, get a pretty good finish on that, and definitely enough detail for the project that I'm working on. You could add more sand if you want bulk of yield, and you don't need as much detail, but I find this is a really good mix here, and the PVA just kind of helps it be a little bit stickier. And you can kind of see the consistency that I'm working with here. Warm butter, you might describe it as. When you turn the trowel, you want it to come off cleanly like that. Like first you want to, it doesn't just slip off. I kind of have to give it a shake, and when you do, it all comes off cleanly. That's what I'm going for here. It is a note that once you mix the concrete and get started, you're kind of on a ticking clock, so to speak. The concrete remains workable for so long before it starts to stiffen up, depending on the ambient temperature that you're working at. But it has kind of a prime zone for when it's most workable, and you kind of get your best work done and your best detail, and it works with you instead of fighting you, and that's kind of right away when you mix it. Give it a minute and then get started. So that's kind of what we're doing here. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, first I just want to give it some weight to the shoulders, so to speak. And this just helps to stop from flopping around on me and sliding around. There we go. That's good. You can find your own methods. I mean, there's not really a wrong way to do this. Especially if you're just making them for yourself. If you're happy with the finished results, well then I guess that was a successful project. I'm not worried too much about, getting details or any kind of finish on this at this point. Just adding some weight, and then I'm going to spin the thing around as I'm adding some to the base, and I'll show you how that goes here. like to give it a little extra in the corners. You'll manipulate the corners a little bit more than the open flat sections. So I want a little bit more material to work with, and I definitely want a lot of strength in the corners. Let's go ahead and turn this. I'm almost out of the first bucket here, and what I'm going to try to do is I'm going to try to build up the back layer, you know, get it like halfway decent, and then spin it around. I want to spin it as little as possible once I've got all the vertical climbs, you know, installed here. So it doesn't look like it's going to fall off, but it might. I don't want it to. Damp sponge. instead of letting that just harden up in the bottom, use a damp sponge, clean all the sides. It makes a huge difference, actually. You can't be replacing buckets every time you mix concrete. There we go. I've been waiting for a good opportunity to talk about this, so let's talk about this. You don't need to see it, you need to hear it. So, it's very important that we cover the steel. Like, this steel, remember, is just malicious stuff, and you certainly don't want any exposed, that somebody would go to pick this thing up, because it's heavy, so you go to really grab it, and if there was something sharp protruding it, that's a trip to the hospital for sure. So, you have to let the trowel tell you when you have steel protruding, and that's why I'm just very carelessly going to town here throwing this on. I'm not worried, I've got all the steel covered, because this is what it sounds like when you don't. So here's troweling of all good. There's a little dot right there. So you need to know that sound, because when you hear it, you got to make sure you cover that up. And you could use a tiny little bit, but I just go ahead and any spot that's even in question, load it up. Boom. Ain't got a problem here anymore. Okay, at this point, before I do this part, because this is the stuff that falls off like crazy. Even this, I probably should have waited. We'll see. It'll probably fall off. I'm going to spin it around, do another pass to kind of smooth everything out, finish it out, see how that concrete feels. Is it starting to set up? Is it pretty good? Is my battery still good? All of these things and more we can discover. So let's go ahead and just kind of spin it. You can see this top edge detail is going to be a pain in the butt, but you don't want to just keep touching it. It's going to move more as I move this thing around, so I'll have to keep coming back to that. I'll come back to that at a later point. Stuff's starting to set up a little quickly on me here. Okay, actually, I think we're going to change gears here for a second. Okay, so let me explain what I'm gonna do before I put the mask on, because it's... Actually, let me check the battery. The battery is completely dead. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead, swap the batteries, and then we're gonna be back as quick as possible here.